This is going to be a video on the dangers of Googling your symptoms. I know that it's something that most health anxiety sufferers have done, and many still do, and it creates a very negative experience. Generally, you research symptoms so that you can get some element of reassurance that there's nothing serious wrong with you. But I'm sure most of you have found that if you do a search on Google, your worst fears will appear in front of you, and you'll be presented with stories about cancer and brain tumours, MS, strokes, all that fun stuff. And I also think most of you will agree that despite your intention to get some reassurance, you actually come out of it feeling worse than you did before you looked. The brain has a massive capacity to store information, and in the process of you researching, well, it's not really researching, is it? Because it's biased. In the process of you searching for information on your symptoms, you are taking in a lot of information that you do not realise perhaps at the time that information will actually come back to haunt you at a later point. The trouble with learning this kind of medical information is the fact that once you've read that information, it's in your mind and in your brain, and there is no way of removing it. So after you've had health anxiety for quite some time, you may start to notice that you'll be going about your normal day, and then all of a sudden something will happen, or you have a sensation, or you hear something on the radio, or you see something on a newspaper cover, or one of the many triggers, and that trigger will then recall the memory of the medical information that you read. And that can often happen even if that information that you initially read was 10 years ago. So although you have good intentions on looking for reassurance that you're not suffering from something serious, you're actually making your health anxiety more serious by giving it fuel to continue. So it's a very counterproductive thing to do. Now, I spend a lot of time active in health anxiety groups, talking to people, and I think most of these groups are frequented by people who have a fixation on only talking about symptoms. The problem with this is the fact that you're all trying to get a quick fix so that you can relax a little and get through the day, and you're thinking on a short-term basis. You're not thinking about health anxiety on a long-term basis. So in order to be able to prevent future problems and prevent the information that you're taking in turning into future triggers, if you seriously feel the need to Google, there is something that's far more beneficial for you to actually look up. And that would be, instead of Googling the diseases you think you could have, Googling the disorder that you do have. And that disorder is health anxiety. Most of the people that I talk to, even people that have had health anxiety for decades, I find it strange that as much as they're living in hell, They've never tried taking a different route by trying to learn about the disorder, because it's essentially the disorder that causes your focus on symptoms. So you're trying to, by dealing with symptoms and looking up symptoms, you're trying to deal with the symptoms of health anxiety and not the cause. In order to be able to recover, you need to go really deep. You need to be able to understand health anxiety and the psychology of health anxiety, and to start to process how your health anxiety came about. If you just focus on the symptoms, it's far too short term, and you're never going to make progress towards recovery. There's plenty of resources out there. There's hundreds of YouTube videos. You could be learning about what's wrong with you, psychologically, as opposed to just reacting all the time to whichever symptom you're currently experiencing. I mean, if it was a case of you just want to deal with that one symptom and then your health anxiety would go away, then explain to me why, with almost all of us, at the point one of our symptoms disappears, a new one emerges. So it's not actually going away at all. We're just going through the same process and creating a new thing to worry about. So I would encourage you to start learning about the actual disorder. Health anxiety is it's a psychological disorder. How are you going to overcome a psychological disorder when you refuse to accept that you have a psychological problem? If you've had health anxiety and you've had it for a year, then you need to question whether or not you actually have a psychological disorder. If you've been doing this for a year, going round in circles, and you're still in the same place, freaking out daily about a new symptom, then you need to accept the fact that this isn't about the symptoms. It's about the disorder. And learning about the disorder will help you overcome it. So, sorry, I will try to avoid becoming frustrated, because I do find it very frustrating. I speak to a lot of people about health anxiety in forums, and as soon as you actually start talking about health anxiety disorder, instead of indulging people in worries about their symptoms, they have no interest in learning about it. So how can anybody be helped when they refuse to address the problem? It's ridiculous. It's like what you're doing is the equivalent of complaining every day that you've got a headache, and you don't know why, and you're not taking into account the fact that every night you're getting drunk and it's causing you to have a hangover. So, in that situation, it would be easy to say, if you don't want to keep having headaches the following day, then don't drink the night before. The cause is the drinking and the symptom is the headache. Yet when it comes to health anxiety, you refuse to accept the fact that the health anxiety could be the cause, and the symptom is just a symptom of health anxiety. So start by accepting it. It's a lot more palatable to understand that you have a psychological disorder than to live your life in fear that you're dying, isn't it? So take the easy option. Try it. just do some research on health anxiety, and you'll find that you fit into most of the descriptions of what health anxiety is. And through doing that, you might actually realize that you're no different. You're not a person who's got random symptoms. You're a person with health anxiety. You suffer from hypochondriasis. It's a medical disorder. So address that point first. Except you have a psychological disorder which causes you to focus on your health. Do not focus on the symptoms. The symptoms will control your life. And when one disappears, it will be replaced by another. I read a Buddhist quote some years back that stuck with me and helped me with accepting that the symptoms weren't the cause of my anxiety. And that expression is, do not switch one delusion for another. That's all you're doing when you skip from symptom to symptom. You're feeding your own delusions, and you need to take a step back. Take a step back and admit that you've got health anxiety. That's where you need to start. Okay, so until tomorrow, bye-bye.